Welcome to another event of Weekend Meeting with Sanal Edamaruku. I am Shubhi Sinha from the Youth Wing of Rationalist International. So, Rationalist International is now the world's largest network of rationalists. All friends who call themselves atheists, agnostics, free thinkers, skeptics, humanists, and secular humanists are part of the network of Rationalist International. Started in 1995, the present headquarters of Rationalist International is in Finland. Sanal Edamaruku is joining this weekly program from Finland. And let's move on to today's topic now. So, today's topic is a sensitive one. Experiments on animals. Is it fair? So, before taking up the questions of the day, I invite Sanal sir to open up the topic for discussion. The first question that we have is how many animal experiments are happening every year? Which countries are doing the most tests?
Well, official and unofficial figures about the animal experimentations that are going on. The most prominent official information that we have says that it's almost nearly 11 million tests per year. What does it mean? From small insects to guinea pigs to dogs to advanced mammals like chimpanzees, we are doing a lot of tests. Mainly for what? The tests are mainly for advancement of medical science. Many of the medicines that we use are tested on animals first. And then when the efficacy is cleared, then only it goes to human testing. Certain animals like the pigs and mice, for example, are used in large quantity because they have similar structures like humans on many aspects in the scientific terminology. So many, not only for medicines, but for advancement of many proactive scientific innovations, animals are used to test. Do you know when it began? It's not very recent. The idea to use animals to test about the efficacy of certain medicines that we use has come from the time of Aristotle. He is mentioning about the importance of using animals for human welfare. So that was tested that the number has dramatically increased in the last 2 centuries. But it's not only for medicines. Defense departments, for military purposes, use a lot of testing. Primarily to attack the enemy or to defend yourself. How, for example, certain chemicals would work on humans. First will be tested on animals. To attack as well as for defense. Then it is, what are the counter methods to handle it? And for example, when bioweapons are used, which was used long back in history. You can see history of bioweapons during the time of crusades. During the time of geographical discoveries, the kind of knowledge that they had at that time was very ruthlessly used against the opponents or against those people whom you wanted to defeat. But it has advanced a lot after we came to know about the possibilities of all the chemicals that are at our disposal. So for medical advancement, for positive advancement, for vaccination, for example, originally it all began with animals. Animals include, the wide spectrum of the different mammals, not only mammals, but also from other kind of insects and other, for example, reptiles and all these kind of living beings are used. But the challenge comes mainly when it comes to advanced mammals. They are closer to us. That's another question, when we speak about eating meat also. Many people feel there is an ethical dilemma when we eat advanced mammals as a developed species. Can't we develop alternatives for that? We need meat. So there are researches going on, for example, to make meat by cloning it without killing animals. That will also reduce the huge animal husbandry industry. Nullify it down. You can produce, like in space when astronauts go, they don't take meat with them. They need protein supply. They don't take meat. They take only a few steak, and they culture it and reproduce the same steak with the same quality without, otherwise it's a lot of heavy weight. To reduce weight, they clone and culture the meat and produce it. That's being industrially produced now, for example, in Singapore and Israel, and that's even available in restaurants. So that's going to be there very soon. But it's real meat. There is no difference. But for which you need not actually kill the animal. That's a new development. Meat eaters, would cherish it. They would feel ethically more comfortable when it is coming without killing a real animal. That's one side of the whole thing. Is there any solutions like that for animal experiments? That will come to. But this is a huge number. And another major side of the animal experiment is for cosmetics. Every single fine cosmetics that you have, they have been tested on animals first. And advancing of the beauty industry's potential is dependent on our ability to test it on animals. When we create medicines, for example, pain-killing medicines, we are using animals to test first to see what are the impact of it. But at the end of the day, when the medicine is created, that's even beneficial for those animals. That's the justification for it. Of course, a lot of animals are killed in the process, but at the end of the day, the next generation animals will be benefited with these painkillers, with these medicines. So it's not only for human welfare, but also for animal welfare that is there. But what about cosmetics? Nobody is going to put a face beautifying cream on a horse. It's only for us. It's for human consumption. Well, one of the major, 18th century argument is man is the yardstick. Man in the sense that human. At the time, in English language, man means, not only for gent, but for both the genders or all the genders. So it was only all for humans. That was the earlier concept. Now there is a lot of advanced understanding about how we have to be careful about the other animals, the flora and fauna, and how we have to be careful that it's not destroyed, how to preserve things, how species should not be eliminated in the process. They can be extinct, if you don't, indiscriminately if you're using. But this kind of awareness has not reached the animal experimentation. So it's a huge number. If you say the size of it, it's several millions, and it's growing and growing and growing.
So do animals suffer during these tests, and what is the solution for it?
Whenever it's possible, pain is reduced. But if you test the efficacy of pain, for example, to what extent of pain, what kind of pain you can tolerate. One good small example. You have to inflict the pain. And it has to suffer the pain. Colin Moore, one of the famous researchers in the United States, who is also an honorary associate of Rationalist International, the topmost scientist in the field of pain relief. He's a member of the Royal Academy of Sciences, and he's also an honorary associate of our Rationalist International. When I met him in 2000, when we had a conference of the Rationalist Press Association in London, it was in Birmingham, sorry. That was the 100th anniversary of the Rationalist Press Association that produced all these wonderful books of the Thinkers Library. We both were speakers there. So we had a chat during the lunch. And at that time, his whereabouts were to be kept in secret because his major research was on stopping pain, especially people who are suffering in very advanced stage of cancer and other ailments where you cannot bear your pain. All that we know about the painkillers have a limitation. After a certain time, you cannot hold the pain. To what extent you can bear pain and what are the solutions? What are the kind of solutions we have? He has been researching on that and he would use mice for the experiment. And he asked for, there is a regulation in Britain, the British Royal Academy of Sciences and all these international bodies there approve the idea of using animals for advancement of scientific knowledge. But there is a monitoring on how many animals you can use per year. And I mean, you have to ask for permission. So he asked for more animals, especially, these, if my memory was correct, hamsters and, small mice I think that was the major contingent that he used. But the animal lovers, especially PETA, was against him. So they even threatened on internet that they would inflict pain on his children to stop this atrocity on animals. That's the kind of opposition on using animals on experiments. So he came out because it's not for me, it's for everybody, it's for the whole human welfare. It's stopping pain that we have to do it. A lot of mice and rat we kill otherwise when we go for cultivation. The farmers kill a lot of rats and mice, but that we are not caring. But when 100 of them are used to study about pain, you are worried. But you don't understand that tomorrow this is going for you. When you have pain in your old age or when you have an ailment, these experiments are going to give you a result. He says that, but of course he had to be protected at that time from the possible attackers. So that is the kind of situation in many countries. Legally it's permitted, but some countries, for example, in advanced chimpanzees and very close to human primates are not allowed to be used. But in some other countries it's used. Some countries it's totally banned. The scientists who use animals for experimentation, the largest numbers are in China and in United States. European Union also is testing a lot of animals. They do have pain, they suffer. But generally, these animals are terminated after the use. They are not allowed to have this pain, to continue this pain. And to the extent possible, they will get control on pain if it is possible. And after the experimentation, they would not, if they live, they will suffer. So they will be put to sleep. They would be killed.
And are all the experiments on animals for human welfare? Like, what's the proportion of animals experiments for medicine and for cosmetics?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of research going on, not for medical purposes also. And a lot is for cosmetics. Some of them, for example, if certain cosmetics are creating allergy to come out of it, that's applied on animals first, and it's repeatedly tested, and they would suffer all the problems with it. And most of these, fine, expensive products that we get in the fine shelves in the supermarket are all going through this process. When, for example, when a person who is concerned about animals, and that's the reason, if that's the reason for a person to be vegetarian, they're not thinking when they use the cosmetics that each cosmetic that you use has gone through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of experiments where animals were suffering and animals were tested, and they had to go through all these problems that now we would not have when we use that cosmetics. And the proportion is there are unsubstantiated figures only are available because most of the cosmetic researches are not done so publicly. What is publicly done is known. But I mean, of course, a lot of research that's going on privately. If it is done in a government-controlled institute, if the figures are to be reported, there are regulations on that, and we would know the exact figures. But unofficially, it's calculated that 72% of the total animal experiments are for cosmetics, which in my view can be dramatically reduced. Of course, cosmetics are important. I mean, enhancing human looks and beauty. I mean, it's an important thing. I mean, because aesthetics is part of that. I mean, it's part of human aesthetics. But one has to reduce pain on other mammals on this reason. But what is the official figure of animals used for cosmetics? Many countries don't give those figures. France, for example, which is the biggest producer of cosmetics or beauty products, don't use their research, but they are, for example, outsourcing research in other countries. China is a major place where researches are done for companies in Europe because China is a big production house. They're producing from Apple, phone. You make the design and give to them. You design the experiment and give to Chinese agencies. And there are so many expert agencies are available who would go through the experiment and give you clinically the correct information. And you surpass in that process a lot of legal formalities that you would go through. But also there are reports that many industries, many corporations use experiments which are not even officially recorded. Only the end result is shown. So there is no monitored figure, correct figure available about the number of animals used in the cosmetic industry. But if you see the size of the cosmetic industry and the pharmaceutical industry, the cosmetic industry is certainly bigger than the pharmaceutical industry. Many people don't even realize that. It's a larger chunk than the pharmaceutical industry. So quite a lot of possibility that it's more used in the cosmetic industry.
Experiments on animals is certainly an ethical dilemma. We human beings, the Homo sapiens, are most developed species. And as many of us call ourselves humanist, which is a human-centric worldview, do we have a right to decide the life of other animals?
Well, Bertrand Russell, for example, refused to accept him to be called as a humanist. You know why? He always felt it's very human-centric. That was the best worldview 200 years back. But if you have a worldview which does not care about the whole planet, which does not care about other animals, which does not care about the flora and fauna around us, there is something limited in that. Therefore, that was Alan Warren who wrote him a letter, Bertrand Russell, and Bertrand Russell answered him, typed letter and signed. It says that, well, but of course you can call me a humanist, I don't mind, I don't file a case against that, but that's not a comfortable word for me, is what Russell said. The point was, that's very simple. The present day humanism is not human-centric. For example, major international humanist organizations, if you see, they are caring for ecology and the balance that we have to maintain about the other animals, and the care for all these kind of things are taken care of by the humanist movement. But humanism per se, if you take the word meaning as Bertrand Russell understood in 1960s or 70s, it's human-centric against divine-centric. But human-centric against the planetary-centric is the other question. That's why Paul Kurtz called himself, his organization, he first differentiated with there are religious humanists and secular humanists. So he called his organization as secular humanist, number one. Then he spoke about planetary humanism. That was the term he used. The last part of his life, he used the word planetary humanism. as an advancement of the term. He has even written a book with the name Planetary Humanism. So this idea is not because we are human-centric. Well, of course, we are the most advanced species on Earth. And we know about the life and information about all species which we are studying. And we keep on improving our understanding about the flora and fauna everywhere. But no other animal can do that. No animal can take care of human welfare like humans can take care of animal welfare. And we are developing our knowledge, our sphere, and our understanding so fast. And our scientific knowledge is exploding. I mean, it's growing every day. You have new innovations, new understanding, and it's a revolution, a permanent revolution going on in the expansion of human understanding and our horizons. Then, well, we have a responsibility, therefore. We are the people who are thinking things about in the ethical framework. We should think about the pain of other animals. That's why there are regulations in many countries. But we have to weigh things. When, for example, for eating, a lot of animals are killed. They're grown and killed. But for the earlier, we have been hunting and killing animals for our food. Or we have been the collectors. And I mean, for example, the rest of the meat that was available from lions and tigers which were hunting, that has been eaten by primates. But later we have been hunting. But now we don't have to hunt for animals. Rather, when the population expanded, we studied that we can grow the animals exclusively for food. And we are doing it. All the same, then the wild animals are left there without being killed. That's the other side of things. And many animals can survive only by eating other animals. That's how the life is existing in this planet. Every predator needs some other animals or fish or some other living being to be eaten. And there are so many predators among birds, among animals. I mean, everywhere you can see predators. And I mean, humans also have been eating by hunting. But we develop patterns on the basis of our values that are growing also. Earlier, you see about kings that are very proud about their hunting just for fun. They used to kill animals. Nowadays, hunting is allowed only in certain countries where the number of animals are growing beyond a certain number. And that's monitored very clearly. And that's to be used for food only. You cannot just kill an animal just for the fun of it. No, you cannot do that. Because we have made conditions based on our new value system, which not only includes human being, but also includes the whole plant kingdom and the animal kingdom. So we are further always working on our value system. So there will be more and more efforts to reduce the pain of animals, and without troubling animals, how we can do it. There are many patterns which are presented by a lot of scientists. For example, whether we can articulate a certain conditions in the cells of non-living material, and then test it. We can make arithmetic methods to understand the patterns, and without killing animals, without giving pain to the animals, can we have alternatives? There's a lot of research going on in that direction also. If you remember, the people who are above 50 in this meeting must be remembering that in our childhood, in the schools, in the biology schools, how, for example, the brain of an animal would work. We would have a live frog in the laboratory. I don't know, still it is practiced in many countries. Frogs were brought. I still remember in my biology class, a frog was brought, and there was a peon in our school who would hunt for frogs every day and bring a lot of frogs and in jars. And this frog is taken, and its head, part of the head is removed, the brain is removed, and to show how reflexes. I still remember in my 4th standard, I've seen such a thing. A frog without the brain, it's removed. It's still living. It can live some more hours without the brain. but still, when you touch the frog, it jumps. You don't need a brain to have that reflex working, because it's in the in the system, in the nervous system. When you touch without a frog whose brain is removed, still it would jump. And for example, for us, you may know that when you touch fire, we withdraw our hand. The signal is not going up to your brain. It's a natural reflex which is reaching only up to the spine and responding. Because and also we can condition it, a lot of reflexes. But the conditioned reflex also is working in patterns that are trained. So these for example, I was mentioning about the frogs. So nowadays, frogs are not used in most of the school laboratories. Rather, we have articulated silicon-based models available, which would show you how it is done. It's not necessary to kill frogs to show you how it works. It is shown in different methods. On a screen, it can be shown, and it can be shown with silicon articulated or programmed, small toys, which behaves like a frog. In some countries, still such practices are going on. And many things, we are reducing the pain of animals, unnecessary suffering of animals, or any creature. Animals, I would mean the entire animal kingdom. And that's the process that's going on everywhere. Similarly, there is a lot of research going on about the possibility that we can reduce the number of animal experiments or control the number of animal experiments and think of alternatives that can replace animal pain. There is a lot of research going on in that direction also.
What's your take on the violent attacks of animal lovers on using animal products and their threat to scientists?
Well, I mentioned about Colin Moore in Britain. I also remember another time when I've been traveling in London. Britain is a center of all these animal lovers. I've been traveling with a friend, a very old friend. I mentioned the name also, Barbara Smoker, who was the president of National Secular Society, whom I consider almost like my mother. She was pretty old, and she was wearing a small scarf made of wolf skin, presented by somebody. And I invited her for a dinner at the China market. And that was a Chinese New Year day, and a big festival was going on. And she has been wearing this very, very happily. And there were sounds, critical sounds, and coming all around. She was scared suddenly, and she had to immediately take it and put in the bag so that she would not be attacked. I was also scared because I have invited her for that little dinner. So this is quite, very, very risky if you use, for example, any kind of animal products. For example, can one use a animal skin for a jacket? You can be attacked in some places. Well, a human can be attacked for protecting an animal, even by principle. That's the kind of aggressiveness in some of the movements. Sometimes the whole problem is, I would really appreciate the fundamental idea of PETA, that animals should not be suffering much. That has created a lot of awareness about animal suffering, and a lot of research is also going on the other side. But these activists sometimes go, cross limits and take law in their hand. There's a problem in that, because it's like if you take the same thing. If that is same like the village panchayats in India that to decide their law above the law in the country to how to handle lovers from two different religions. We call it Kap Panchayat, or the moral policing that happens in almost all parts of the developing world. Here, people have their value system, and they think that that's to be implemented on other people with might. If they say, and that's denounced as a criminal activity, as a nasty behavior, unacceptable behavior, and that is, unethical, incorrect, and that's discouraged everywhere in the world. But even for greater goals, Like, for example, the green movement representatives, not all the green people are like that. I know about some green activists who would even go violent to articulate their position. I would always say that one should find peaceful and legal ways to advance any position. Only then it will be understood properly and it will be taken in the right spirit. Every activist movement has certain meaning. Every activist movement has some content. So it may not be taken by the society or the government as it is, but it takes forward certain ideas, and that will be, changing sometimes policies, not exactly in the way. For example, the animal lovers have really taken forward the suffering of animals. So now there are researches going on, and countries are making regulations on animal pain. While the research is important and to be continued at one side, the researches are going on to reduce pain and regulations to reduce the number of animals to be suffering it. So therefore, I would say that the violent activities of activist groups are not very advisable. And the moment they raise public opinion, write articles, and try to make, take up their position, any position which they feel correct should be taken peacefully and legally. That's my take on that.
Well, thank you for answering all these questions. And I think now we can finally move on to the question answer round. I would request all the participants to raise their hand through that icon. And I would again request everybody to be precise and to the point with the question that you want to ask. I see a few people here. I'll just
see euthanasia is allowed to animals since 2006. The basic act governing the animals is the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, and the rules framed for the. I have been talking for the Indian viewers that they can go through the breeding and experiments on animals. Rules 1998. It provides for 9-member committee and how the animal is to be killed and how the animal is to be monitored when the animal is going into pain or paralyzed. So the topic is so excellent. And once again, I ask the Indian viewers to go through the Indian law, reading of and experiments of animals, control and supervision rules 1998, based on the law, mother law, the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act 1960. Thank you, Sanal, for the excellent topic selected for today.
Yeah, thank you, Abhi. I know about in India, and most of the countries, euthanasia of animals are permitted. For example, if you have a cat or dog also, if it has cancer or it has some pain, and if the owner of the pet, for example, is convinced about that, you can ask a vet to stop its life. And I know about one family here who raise horses, and they had a horse when its leg is broken, for example, it's done. You cannot, the horse suffers with that. I mean, it cannot have a normal life. They asked the vet, they asked permission, and they asked the vet to, kill the horse. I mean, for animals, it's done. So it was agreed, and they shot dead the horse. So that's possible in almost all the countries in the world. India has a very good law about, terminating animals. When it has pain, or when you cannot cure the animals. And people who care their pets, nobody would want the pets to be killed, only at a position that you cannot bear that animal suffering to that extent. You would permit that little animal whom you loved a lot to be killed. It's out of love that many people decide to allow the animal to be killed. The most painless way possible. If it can be called euthanasia even for animals. But coming to the research on animals, the majority of the researches on animals that are happening in this world, it's not in India. India has comparatively very less. The percentage of Indian research is very less as compared to United States. In United States, it's estimated that something like 80 million. Researchers. This is the kind of researchers that are going. China, 110 million. That's the kind of researchers that are going on involving animals in the world. And also the outsourced companies, there are secret companies, because some countries don't allow certain researchers, but still researchers would go. But that's one of the whole thing with researchers. Once people want to know something, they would go to any extent to understand that, including about pain or suffering, that's all knowledge. Knowing about pain, knowing about suffering, knowing about how certain things work on, some certain chemicals work on animals or human beings, these all are part of the expanding knowledge. So there are regulations in the world. More regulations have a problem. That's another thing. But still the researchers will go. It's like banning alcohol. You can do that. But allowing alcohol has one advantage, that it will, primarily on the health angle, you can monitor the alcohol, and comparatively better quality alcohol can be provided to people. Otherwise, those who want, they will go and drink. When, for example, I heard recently, that's a news from India, I've recently heard, that a few people, 4 or 5 people, when the alcohol shops, the beverages shop, as we call it in Kerala, were closed because of the lockdown, people who are dependent on alcohol, they have started drinking the sanitizer, hand sanitizer, because it has alcohol. But certain sanitizers are using different alcohol that's not good for you, and that can burn your stomach, and you can have, and they died. 4 people died because they have been just drinking sanitizer. I heard some years back in Russia, they tried prohibition of alcohol. But you know what people have been drinking? Brake fluid of the car. It has spirit. So that's not the way. Therefore, when researchers are not permitted, similarly, not only the anxiety to understand things, not only the spirit of understanding things more and more, scientific inquiry has 2 edges. It's for our welfare. It's for knowing new things also, but not only for our welfare, but also for destruction. Scientific knowledge can be used for our good and for our bad. It has no feelings. Science has no feelings. It's detached of any kind of value system. It's facts, it's information, it's dissemination, it's understanding. So in whose hand scientific information is available is also very important. That is why permission and regulation has more value, and it's more effective than stopping certain things. You can reduce the number, and you can monitor the examination. You can see what all you can do, if it has to be explained properly. That is why there are the number of researches that are going on in the field of animals. It's done secretly, unreported, and when the results are there, it's used in a different way. There are a lot of secret researches going on, outsourced researches going on in different parts of the world.
All right. Thank you. So we'll move on to the next person.
That's your pet. No problem. And I was just...
I worked in a medical field since 1969. I lived in medical field since all that time until my retirement. And I worked in the biggest medical center in the USA, in the world. The institution I worked, there was always research. I worked with the medical doctors who are scientists. They are very good people. They worked with animals in their lab. Hepatitis B vaccine is developed right here. You all get hepatitis vaccine, but out of these 18 million animals, maybe used majority of them in Houston Medical Center. In here, there is 80 to 92 hospitals are scattered around. It's a huge medical center. There's international patients are coming, and we welcome. They have special privileges. The Muslim brothers in my institution where I worked, they have special rooms for prayer, that much cared for everything. So, but in outside, if you beat a stray dog or a stray cat, they will be arrested and put in jail. But these research animals may be killed after certain time, but they are employees to take care of them. And we lost so many animals during Harvey flood. They were kept under the basement. So now I really don't know where they are kept, what floor. But these animals are here, and it is to save our life as well as the benefit of the animals. There is animals research are going on to improve their, their better milk producing animals, things that like that, and also like plants research are going on to develop better plants. These are also going on. It's not just medical research. In China, they are already cloned humans, perfect humans. America has that capability to produce perfect humans, but it is not done. Probably it is done. It is not been came out as a paper or anything. And then there is another thing I want to share with you. Tuskegee research. Tuskegee research was done on Black people, on syphilis research. There were 600 people and 400 of them are with syphilis, and 200 Black men are without syphilis. Those men were blinded, saying that we are cleaning out your bad blood. And they kept on checking and checking from some 1932 to 1972, but the penicillin was available. Still, those candidates were not treated. They told them, we are checking you in order to recruit in the force. Some of them recruited, but the people with syphilis did not recruit. And then finally, the New York Post bring this to the light. They published article on it in 1972, and then these people, Black brothers and sisters, went to court, and they went to court and they are restituted for $10 million. The last of in that group, 2009, that last person died. So, to use animals is not a bad thing. Now, the institution I worked, 172 staffs are out on agitation. They are saying Pfizer vaccine and other vaccines are not a good medicine. There is no reason to believe that will cure COVID. But the evidence, the science shows the death rate is went down in United States. So these 170 people will be suspended. They will be fired soon. There are 20,000 employees in this institution where I worked. So the CEO said, regardless, if they did not take the vaccine, they will be fired. And I have another concern.
Come to this issue, vaccine.
Yeah, the issue vaccine. The another concern. You told that if we don't take the membership, I'm afraid that I won't be allowed to listen to you. I thought when I started to listen to you, I'm listening some truth. If I did not join your group, that means I won't be allowed to listen no more, or what?
First of all, I answer that question. So this meeting is meant for communication with people who are interested to join. That has nothing to do with the membership in any organization. So to become a member of the Rationalist International Network is those people who would formulate policies, who would implement action and make local activities or other conferences and other things. And they will be consulted on policy formulation. That has nothing to do with this meeting. This meeting and similar meetings in other forum also we will be continuing. That has nothing to do with membership. You need not take any membership anywhere to listen to this meeting. It will be free. It will continue the same way. Also, these are simultaneously, you see some 40 to 100 people every time. 100 is the limit that we have to directly have this meeting. But this also simultaneously streamed on YouTube. And normally we have 1,000 to 6,000-7,000 people watching there also in the coming days. So this is a communication. It's an open forum where we discuss about things. That's number one. Number two, Mrs. Matthew, what you said is a very, very interesting information about researches on human beings. That we did not discuss at this moment. But research on